put this part of our demo on SPA functionality together mainly due to a request from a student working on one of the projects, actually a couple students. Situation comes in place, and sometimes you don't necessarily want to have a pop-up modal. You'd like to do something more like an edit in place. Now, this can be done not just for editing. You could do the full CRUD operation with this approach, right? But I'm just going to focus on editing because that's more applicable to the current need of one of our students. Now, to set it up and have a similar kind of situation, what I've done is I've come to my song and I thought to myself, you know what? There are other properties about a song that sometimes we might be concerned with, okay? Maybe not always. Okay. It's a bit of a stretch, but because there's so few. These really just could be additional properties inside the song class, and that would be the end of it. No problem whatsoever. But I wanted to show, using one-to-one relationships, how sometimes it might make sense to, there's all these properties of one entity. Why not just have them in the entity, and away you go? Sometimes it's just so many that it's easier to manage the system and makes for better performance as well if you break up the class a little bit, right? Think of even when we were doing our summer games, right? I had actually taken out many properties that were related to a given athlete because it was just overwhelming to try and work with them all at once. Even as it was really too much almost, I think, for a classroom example. But hey, we got through it, didn't we? Right? But that's a situation where you might have easily said, well, you know what? Some of these properties we could kind of leave out sometimes. And that's the advantage of putting them in a separate entity is, you could do a link query, go and get the core properties, so to speak, the ones that you're always going to want to have included in the entity. And optionally, you could do .include whenever you want other sort of even groups of properties brought in to work with them as well, right? You can cut down the size of the objects you're pulling from the database and so on, and just include what you want. So kind of following that logic, what I've done here is I've created a separate entity altogether called a song detail. It contains comments, the length of the song, and a rating. Now, to be honest with you, the rating, let me get to my models again here, is just an enumeration, right? Not utilities, models. Okay, my rating is just an enumeration from terrible, not bad, all the way up to great, right? Those are my ratings that I have. Notice I only needed to add a display property to the one because you're not allowed spaces inside an enumeration. Okay, so that's the rating. So those are the three additional properties. They could have easily lived inside song, but I'm going to put them here separately. Now, it's a one-to-one, right? There's multiple options you could use to set up a one-to-one. Go back to my PowerPoint on POCO relationships if you need to. Right? This is one of the ways to do it. So we have the foreign key here, right? Song ID and song that relate back to the actual song. So these are additional properties of the one song, right? It's a one-to-one. Why? Well, that's handled right here, essentially. Instead of an I collection, okay, we only ever actually have a single song detail related back to this one particular song, right? It's one song detail record, not a collection of them, right? I decided to even new it up initially, so when we create a new song, we also create the related song detail record. That isn't necessary. You don't always have to do that, but it's also one reason why I made sure anything that was required, I put a default value in as well, right? Okay, so that's just laying the groundwork. This is our scenario. We have a song, we have some properties that are always there, and some that we might include when we want them, right? Okay, so to get this to work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the actual song detail view, right? So in the song detail view, which is right here, get away from that screen, we typically have all the details just in this description list here, right? Or definition list, whichever term you prefer. So what I did is after the normal ones that are always there, what I've done is I make sure I do a .include, okay? And I have all the song details as well, right? So here are my additional details. Now I decided to separate it on the page a little bit, make it stand out as a separate group of properties. You wouldn't have to, right? If you wanted to, I could just put everything inside this div right underneath this description list, okay? No horizontal rule between or anything. And then it would look like it was just one continual list of properties. You wouldn't even be able to tell at first glance that these were stored separately, right? But I decided to offset them off. I've stuck them in this nice little well with a background color and a bit of padding and so on and so forth, right? But this ID, song detail, that's key, because this is a div that we're going to replace the contents of as we switch from basically read-only to edit mode and back again, right? So our button here, okay, notice I've thrown a tag in, which is a useful way to get communication into our JavaScript code. So it has the ID of the actual song, right, stored in the tag. The ID is edit detail, so we'll take advantage of that to actually then get the click event of this particular button. Okay, notice it's inside. Okay, it's even inside the div that we're going to place the entire contents of, right? That's okay. We're allowed to do that. Even though this button is causing the action that will replace itself along with all the other code inside this div, that's okay. We can go ahead and do that. The button doesn't have to stay there. All right, so that just gives me that look that we saw up on the screen a few minutes ago. Actually, you know, I don't think I've run it in this video yet, so let me do that next. Just so we're all totally clear on exactly the functionality we're talking about here again. So if I come to song, pick any one of them, go to details. So here are the additional details in relation to this song, the comments, the length of the song, the rating, etc. And if I want to modify it, I can click this. Notice that we didn't navigate away. We're still on the same page. We've just used a partial view that we've loaded in over top of where that previous information was shown. And now I can, you know, make some changes here. It was a little bit longer. And, you know, it's good. It's not really great. So I can save all those changes, and we see it's immediately updated and back to the read-only version. Oh, you know what? Everyone decides it really is great after all. There we go. And if I want, I can just cancel without making any changes, and we're right back again. So that's the functionality we're after here. Now, we're just focused on edit. You could do the same approach with all three, create, edit, and delete as well if you wanted to for this bundle of related properties. All right. So to make this work, what we did again is I decided to create a separate controller, right? I could have incorporated it into the song controller, but to help with the separation and reduce the clutter in the song controller, I made a separate song detail controller, right? Similar to what we just did with the last example, my index action is there just for safety because it's the default route and just redirects over to the actual song index. End of story there. Okay, we have two. We have an edit for a get and a post. Our get doesn't return a view, is once more a partial view result, okay, returning our song detail edit partial view. And we actually have it as a strongly typed view, so it has a model to supply the data for the model, which is a song detail object. We go and we get that song detail object. Because there's only one, okay, with this foreign key value for the song ID, we can just use first or default async, right? That goes and gets us the one song detail record, which we pass as the model for my song detail edit view, right? So that view, of course, will be underneath in views under song detail. It's the only view there, right? Okay, so that gets up on the screen by being inserted as a partial view into that div on the actual detail page for the song. Now, after we finish, right, let me just show you again where that goes. So that's right in here in song detail. So all this data inside the div will be replaced, right, with this, right, with all of this partial view. Okay, then we come back to the controller after we're done here and we click the submit event. Okay, notice there's an ID here, submit song detail form is the ID. So I grab the click event of that button, right? And then I prevent default, I gather up all the data, similar to what we were just talking about doing before, and post it here, right? So it comes in, I get the song detail record to edit, okay, because I passed the ID for that. As long as I have it, then I go ahead and do try update model, update those three properties I want to be allowed to change: the comment, the length, and the rating. Save changes, it's always good. Return okay. If there's a concurrency exception, we can handle that. There isn't because we don't even have a row version in the song detail. DB update exception, right? Nothing to anticipate here. There's no unique constraints or anything here, but we can just give our generic message if there's something else. And once more, I'm using my utility we added earlier to build error messages into that delimited string of error messages separated by pipe characters, right? Pulling all the errors out of our model state. So it's very much the same as what we did a few minutes ago. It's just basically a different type of implementation of how it appears in the page itself. Okay, so the song detail partial view, this one lives inside, let me just close that up. This one lives inside the actual songs views folder, right? So it just refreshes that data on the screen, and once more we get back our edit details button, right? It allows us to go back and forth. It was there initially, but remember this all got replaced, so we're going to put it all back again basically with this partial view. And that's all there is to it, really. The only other thing in here is that we also have this button for our cancel operation, right? So it just cancels the operation, and basically we grab the click event of this one if this is the partial view that's visible on the page, and it will cause this partial view to be replaced back inside of this div on the details itself. So that just refreshes it to show the read-only version once more. Finally, a quick walk through the JavaScript itself, right? So notice we've got two different clicks. This is one for when we click our modify button, okay, to go in to edit the details, right? I grab the song ID, okay, and we go to our song detail controller, the edit action, right? And we load that edit form, our song detail edit form, into the song detail div up here, this one. And that's all that really does. Okay, it replaces that section of the page with this other partial view, right? Now, depending on what button we click inside of this partial view, the one that's now visible, if we click our cancel button, well, that's where this comes into play. This is the code then that runs, right? We grab the click event of our cancel button, which is called refresh details. That's the ID. Then we just basically, from the tag, we'll get the song ID. So we can just go to the songs controller, show song details, and pass the ID along with that. And that once more replaces that div with the read-only version from right there. The other thing that can happen is if inside here we actually click our save button, right? Then we grab its click event in our code here, right? So we click on our save button, which is ID submit song detail form. We prevent default. We grab from the tag here the song detail ID, right? We grab the form itself. We can do the check for validation, prepare our AJAX request, etc. If it's all successful, once more, same code that we have up here, note, if our cancel is just to basically refresh, you might say, that div with the song details, right? Okay, the read-only version. If there's an error, same thing we've done before, okay? Checking, of course, if it's a 401, then we must be logged in. If it's a 403, we're not authorized. We're logged in, but we're not allowed, okay? Otherwise, we check for errors, right? Split the message that we prepared. If we don't have any error messages, we just say unable to complete. Otherwise, we give our nice append, okay, our list items to our unordered list, and away we go. All right. You know, I think that is everything. I'll just run it once more. You know what? I think should have done this in the last video. I don't know if I ever showed you getting the database error. I can't get a database error, I don't think, here, right? Because there's nothing that, there's no concurrency or anything in place. So, you know, this can work. I can save here, but I can't show a database error per se. But I can here, and I don't think I ever did. So let me come back to this once more. I know this is related to the first part of the demo, but if I, well, let me edit this song just so I can steal the name. I can X out of here to cancel. If I go to add a song with that name, doesn't matter the date, okay? Might have been recorded a long time ago. It doesn't matter the genre. It's going to cause an error in the database. Can I have duplicate song titles on the same album, right? So just showing that it is ready to do that, to communicate the errors. And that would work the same way if there was a database error to communicate on this page as well. All right, that's it.